Right, welcome to chapter 4 of this extremely unprofessional review of the Ford Dark Edition territory. As promised, a month has passed. It's actually a month and 1 day since taking ownership of this car. I've done videos on the interior, videos on the boot space, videos on the electronics. And now this is a video on the driving of the vehicle after a month, not driving after 1 hour and then doing a review and telling people what they think. This is a month worth of driving, mixed freeway and urban, I think, yeah. Not a lot of freeway, to be honest, but the freeway has been like OR Tambo, which is a 40-kilometer drive or so, as well as Lanceria, so basically airport trips. But it gives a lot of insight. Firstly, there's obviously a bit of bias, being a German car fan, driving only German cars. I've driven Opel, driven BMW extensively, driven VW. I've driven Toyota, Fortuner, so one of the better-ish ones for a couple of years, and driven Nissan for like 6 months, worst 6 months ever. And now obviously Ford, a vehicle, a brand that I've always used its definition, commonly known as fix or repair daily. So first time driving a Ford, hence I did get it with all the different safety features such as roadside assistance, full maintenance plans, so just in case it lives up to its name, you never know. But anyway, so yeah, some bias towards German cars because of having more time driving it, but that does also mean I do hold this Ford standard to a high level, being a very old brand. When you've all watched Ford vs Ferrari, if you don't know too much about cars, which is like me, I know enough about cars, but I'm not going to be able to open the bonnet and then talk to you about every element of the car and tell you how to fix it. That's not me, but I do know enough to have enough discussions about it and reviews, considering also this is probably the eighth car that I've owned or driven. So it's, if anything, a road driving review of the everyday man, not the mechanic, not the professional car reviewer. Anyway, I have now put a focus onto the trip speedometer. Look, one thing that has been known up front, it wasn't a secret, was this car is thirsty. It was known that it is heavy on fuel. It's a 1.8 EcoBoost engine. There's a badge on the back. I'm thinking of having it debadged, because as much as there is some power, I wouldn't call it boost, and it's definitely not eco. So EcoBoost is a real oversell. There's nothing EcoBoost about this car. Right now, what you're looking at is how long I've had the car in the 1 month. Yes, you're gonna be like, sheesh, you drove 1,800. Yes, I did. For someone that works from home, that is a lot of driving for the month. But my daughter's school is a 50-kilometer a day drive because of their back morning, afternoon. So that's given me most of my mileage. It's fairly open roads, so it's only in the mornings a bit of traffic. Right now I'm driving back, so there's not so much traffic, but the average speed I've driven is 42 kilometers. That tells you there's some stops that happen, and it's not a lot of freeway driving. So if look, this is the everyday person not driving freeways to work kind of situation, but in fairly moving traffic. It's not dead still traffic, otherwise we'll be seeing well into the 10s. When I did do a freeway drive, just looking at driving to the airport, for instance, it was like 7.5, so that was good. But like I said, I'm not a freeway driver, so I don't get that luxury. But yeah, 9.8 is what I've got in the last month. That's the average since getting the car. These averages are all since getting the car. Nothing has been reset. You'll see the tank saying I've got range of 362 left, and it's just over half. What I have seen is probably 550, 560 kilometers on the tank. It's a 60-liter engine, so as much as it does look like it's got a bigger tank, it doesn't. 60-liter engine, 560, because of this 9.8. Now, there's always that age-old story of engines new. Once it breaks in, it'll get better. In this day and age, I don't know how much of that is true. Back in the day, maybe after the first 10,000, all those stories. I don't know if it's just something salespeople tell you because you'll be gone and not seen within 10,000 kilometers of driving. But yeah, 9.8, and I did read people are talking about 10s and high 9s, so I'm thinking it probably is what it is. And yeah, I guess it's a give and take. You get the space, you get the size, you get the massive sunroof, moonroof, whatever you want to call it, and the downside is your mileage. But from back to driving, the driving of this car, look, the steering, very smooth, electronic steering. Sometimes it does feel a little bit too electronic, almost like there's some kind of interference. Like if you're holding the steering in a certain angle, like a 20 degrees to the left, and you're going around a bend, you'll feel there might be a slight twitch, almost like, I don't know if it's got to do with the lane assist or something, but I mean the lane assist is off. But the electronic then, so because right now when it's very smooth and you feel like you have full control, it just feels like it's a smooth steering. But as soon as you have a twitch here and there, you start thinking it's electric and there's some funny stuff going on, which means you're not fully in control. Even if it was a false perception, at least it was there. Yeah, so that's the one thing with the steering, very smooth, which is good. The problem sometimes with it being very smooth is if you go over a bump or a speed bump, you'll feel the steering will move a little bit, which is something you don't almost ever feel in a BMW. It feels like if you go over a speed bump, at an angle, if you go, and I'm not talking about going over at a high speed, I'm talking about being a normal human being going over a speed bump at 15, 20 kilometers an hour, the steering won't move. The car's fairly firm on those speed bumps, whereas on this car it does change or move a little bit. Might be a Ford thing, who knows. Maybe it's a feature that Ford offers to keep you awake, I don't know. But yeah, that's the one thing with the steering. Now this is the biggest thing now that I'm going into, and that is the gearbox. So you've got this Chinese dial. Look, from an aesthetic point of view, I'm used to having my hand rest on the armrest and then hold the gearbox, the gears, just because it's something I used to do. Now I've got used to not touching anything because there's nothing as a dial, and you don't want to have your hand on the dial in case something goes wrong. The one thing I can tell you with this gearbox, I don't know, I'm not actually sure if it's Chinese or if it's Ford, so I don't know what it is. I can tell you on the Wild Track, the 2017 Ford, the gearbox was terrible, absolutely terrible. Poor gear changing, over revving, you could feel the car was heavier fuel just because of how long it sat in the low gears 1, 2, and 3. I don't think this car sits in gears too long. The one thing they've done is they've removed the ability for you to have any control on what gear you're in. So not only can you not shift up or down because there's no paddle shift, there's no way to change gears whilst you're driving, so you can't use the gearbox at all, and you can't even see on your dash what gear you're in. You just gotta know what you know. If you know, you know. So right now the big issue I have is not that. The big issue I have is first gear is very, very heavy, like unbelievably heavy. You'll actually see if you're in first gear and you're looking at your average consumption, it's something like 29.9 liters per 100 just in first gear, and then change second. I think that's probably what gives you the biggest boost of your consumption that's being so bad, is the fact that first gear is fairly heavy. But I mean, that's probably just how things are. That's not the issue. The issue I have though is the whole of first gear feels like you're riding the clutch. Now maybe that's a deal breaker. I feel now it's a deal breaker. Had I known earlier, if someone said to me first gear feels like you're always riding the clutch, I'd have been like, nope, thank you, moving on. Because it does, it feels like you're riding the clutch the whole time, and that's probably why the consumption's so high. It doesn't feel natural, like you've now let go of brakes and start accelerating. It feels like you're holding the clutch down and you're accelerating and lifting the clutch up a little bit so the car can move. But you can hear the engine struggling. You can see the consumption. That is the issue I have with first gear on this car. And it's very heavy because of that. But it feels like it is probably not the case. But this is from driving multiple cars, you know, in my history, and I've never had that feeling of I feel like I'm riding the clutch, except for when I had a manual and I would ride the clutch, which I never did. But if I ever did, that's the kind of sound and engine feel I would get. So right now, if you look, we're in stop traffic. You can see the car in front's red lights. The car is now stopped. And when we take off, you'll see what I mean by first gear. This is trip 1, so this is now the consumption and the numbers based on this tank. Okay, I'm taking off, and you can see I'm accelerating very low. 29.9 first gear. Second gear still 29, actually, I didn't realize that. And third gear is 26, fourth gear. So it only starts to get lower when you're in fourth gear. 1, 2, and a bit of 3 is pretty hectic. Sorry about the glare. But it's morning. But yeah, that's you can see on the tank that I said earlier, 3/4 tank, 286 kilometers driven on it, and I think the range was 300 something left. It'll obviously dip, so we'll be sitting around the 550 mark. But yeah, that's it. The car is currently in start-stop mode. So also this is something I'd like to pay attention to, is auto hold is on, start-stop is on. I want you to see the car on the road when I take off, because this is something very notable, slightly problematic. And I'm on a slight incline. I can't give you the degrees, but I'd probably put it at 10 degrees incline. I don't know. When the robot turns red, you can't really see it. Sorry, when the robot turns green, I'll take off. And I just want you to see how the car moves. So okay, it's turned green. I'm going to start taking off. Let this taxi go around. Once everyone starts moving, so I don't want to take off into the back of this Kiger. Okay, that's better. One thing I've noticed is with this car, even though it's automatic, you must have your auto hold on, which is the buttons down here. And why I say you must have it on, even though it's an automatic, the car will roll back. About, I'd say it's probably rolling back 5 to 10 centimeters. Not a lot. It's not gonna, damage anything, but it does give you that sense of loss of control, because when the car stops, the car's off, and then you take off. The weirdest thing is that the engine is much slower to start. It's like a 2 to 3 second time for the engine to restart. But whatever hold is on automatically removes a second sooner. So once again, what I'm saying is engine takes longer to start than the hold on the car. So the car will then roll back a little bit, engine will then start. You'll have a mini panic and accelerate a little bit to get control back. But that doesn't happen unless the car actually starts. So it's about a 1 second delay between car roll and car start. Which is why I say definitely you must have the use of the auto hold on, not just for helping you because you might be a bad driver with the automatic, but just because you need to help this Ford engine. Look, it's not all doom and gloom. It sounds like it, but this is me obviously criticizing so that you know the bad. Everyone talks about the good. The good is great, a lot of space, technology. I mean, we've spoken about that, but I will go into more depth in another video. But just the drive, I'd say I've spoken mostly about first and second gear. Roads, very smooth drive, that I'll definitely admit. It's a very, very smooth drive. The tires do, and I'm to use a reviewer's kind of language, soak up the bumps. Not that I'm driving over bumps, but just the natural defects of the road. It does take it quite well. Besides, obviously, I told you, hit a bit of a bump and the steering moves a little bit. But very smooth drive, very happy with that. If first gear was a little bit more fluent and not as riding off the clutchy, I probably would be, flawlessly happy with the engine and the drivetrain. Unfortunately, that is what it is. Is it a problem, or is it just something Ford does? I don't know. I can find out. finding good service advisors that actually know the vehicles in and out very hard these days. Almost everyone just knows the bare minimum to get through their job, such as South Africa. But yeah, look, I will look it up, but that first kit is the only weird thing to me. Will I go and complain about the consumption? Definitely not. It's what I bought. I knew it's going to be that way. I'm pretty sure if the consumption was lower, the engine would be a bit slower, and then we'd be dealing with a 110 kilowatt Tiguan, which I did not want. But yeah, thanks for watching, the 2 or 3 people that do. Remember to unsubscribe and do not share this video, and thank you.